Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to my program. I'm Armando F. Sanchez, and today we're talking to a wonderful individual that I've come to call my friend. We've never met physically together, but we've communicated, we've shared ideas back and forth. David Dephy. He is in New York City, but he is from the country of Georgia, which is part of Eastern Europe. And we're going to talk about the Cold War and his interpretation of what happened back then, and also touch a little bit about some of the things that affected the times, affected the people of the time, and is actually carrying over into the era of the invasion of Ukraine. Let me give you a little bit of background. First of all, David Dephy is an award-winning poet. He is a trilingual Georgian American award-winning poet, novelist, multimedia artist, the winner of the 2019 Spill Words Press Poetry Award, and the finalist of the Adeline Literary Award Anthology 2019 for the category of Best Poem. And I'm very proud to announce that he has recently now received an award for the first place winner in poetry 2021. Very, very reputable award, the Artist Forum, New York City. Congratulations for that wonderful award. David, you merit it, really. I've had the honor of reading your poetry. You've sent me more, and I'm always touched by it. So I hope people who are on the show today have access and be able to read more of your information. Part of the show is we'll give out contact information where people can find you, find your books, and get more information. With that, David, if I read your bio, I'll be here half an hour, so I'll just stop there. But anyway, thanks for being on the program. David, let's begin. The topic is the Cold War, 1945, 47 is really when it's officially classified, 47. And you were born in Georgia. Tell us about your experience, how you and your family experienced the Cold War.
Thank you, Armando. Thank you for having me. As we know, the Cold War is a state of political hostility between countries characterized by threat, by propaganda and stuff like this. So this is a state of political hostility existed between 1945 and 1990, to be precise, and between the US-led Western powers and Soviet bloc countries, and Georgia included, of course, and Ukraine and Baltic countries. So the story of Cold War, for me, is a story of total darkness and freedom. The story of death and freedom. Because we, the people, have right to be free. Cold War, the term Cold War, it sounds like a deadly sin for me. And let me explain what I feel. In general, what can we feel and remember when we say this term Cold War? Is this a real war? Are we talking about a real war? A real ugliness of war? The political undercurrent, stream of deadly actions and events during the decades, for decades? Is this some kind of fantasy, or what is this? And I can say that this is our real history with the real people, real vocations, story about real vocations, real hope, real fight, real resilience, real resistance, story about bravely behavior of people. in East Europe mostly, of course. But I think, anyway, it remains the story of culture, because everything, in my opinion, in my understanding, everything is a culture and politics together. Art, for example, art is the huge part of culture. And culture means not only art, but everything: religion, science, politics. And this part of the world, I mean, eastern part of the world, was under the huge and really deadly pressure of Kremlin during this era from 1945, mostly from 1945 and 1990. For example, we elected and we manifested our independence in Georgia in 1989. And there was a huge massacre. It's called Tbilisi, Georgian massacre, when Russian troops just killed people, even pregnant women, in the streets of capital of Georgia, Tbilisi. So Kremlin hates the concept of freedom because they never be free. They never will be, in my understanding, because right now, what's going on in Ukraine, this is the final war, final battle, final deadly action between light and darkness, between humans and anti-humans, because Kremlin is not the statement of empire of madness, but this is anti-truth. And by the way, when I read the book, it's called Russian Diaries by John Steinbeck. And let me read one paragraph written by John Steinbeck when he was in Tbilisi, Georgia. What he said exactly about Georgia, because Georgia is a beautiful country with absolutely strange history and totally unknown for the West. Let me share this with you. Wherever we had been in Soviet Union, in Moscow, in Ukraine, in Stalingrad, the magical name of Georgia came up constantly. People who had never been there and who possibly never could go there spoke of Georgia with a kind of longing and a great admiration. They spoke of Georgian as Superman, as great drinkers, great dancers, great musicians, great workers and lovers, and great poets.
You slipped that one in.
And they spoke of the country in the Caucasus and around the Black Sea as a kind of second heaven. Indeed, we began to believe that most Russians hope that if they live very good and virtuous lives, they will go not to heaven, but to Georgia, and they die. Heaven forbid. It is a country favored in climate, very rich in soil, and it has its own little ocean, Black Sea. Great service to the state is rewarded by a trip to Georgia. It is a place of recuperation for people who have been long ill. And even during the war, it was a favored place, for the Germans never got there, neither with plans nor with troops. It is one of the places that was not hard at all. So this is a statement written by John Steinbeck. And Russia crushed Georgian culture, just crushed churches, crushed education centers. Russia made another attempt to conquer Georgian language and replace Georgian language by Russian language. It's a crazy, and everything happened in that period of time when Georgia was occupied by Soviet Union in 1921. But in 1945, when Stalin was a Georgian, and this is the huge shame because I think Stalin was a anti-man, not only just a bad guy in history. No, he was a not normal man at all. He was a devil in the flesh, like Putin tried to be like a Stalin, but no. Kremlin must be destroyed because Cold War, it's still going on in our minds. And I know then we know the end is near, end of the Kremlin. But we must remember what has happened before in Europe and in the world itself, of course. And by the way, I'd like to say a little compliment, and because I happened to open the work by you, this Cold War living under the shadow, and I'm deeply honored that I wrote a little short review about your book, and you gave us a brilliant answers from eyewitnesses, people who our generation, for example, witnessed this Cold War by our own eyes. And you gave us a brilliant answers. It always works. Eyewitness is a man or woman who was in right place or not in right place, in right time, but not in right time. We don't know exactly, but we were there. We know. We still can feel and smell, and our five senses are ready to tell the story. So it's a not quite good and fantasy story like Hollywood did or European cinema did. This is a real story about heroes, unknown heroes. All of them just vanished, just disappeared. But the symbol of this epoch, I can say absolutely freely and fluently, was words famously said by President of United States, Mr. Ronald Reagan: "Tear down this wall, Mr. Gorbachev." And I think this is the landmark in the history. These words are the many landmarks in the history, like words by our first president, Zviad Gamsakhulia, who manifested independence of Georgia. And this is also a huge landmark. Words by and actions and other actions by Václav Havel, and president of Poland and Baltic countries. This is a story about new generation Spartans. So I think that's the right work with the stories of eyewitnesses, I mean, in your book, and you will find solace in this work. And I think so you already you have this answer, and the book has already the answer. What really has happened from 1945 till 1990? I think the point is, great stories, both relatable and tangible, but it's far beyond of our understanding what history is, because history is a very, very strange stream of our memories. It cannot be false. Of course not. It's precisely, absolutely right thing in our culture. But sometimes we all are living under not only the shadow of the Cold War, but under the shadow of history itself. It's like a labyrinth. It's a very strange labyrinth.
Let me say that as we see the Russians attacking the Ukraine, or we go back into the history of the Cold War, are we judging the whole country, all its population, and saying they're all bad people? Or do we have to be careful and say the leadership and the people closely around the leadership are the ones that are really pushing a lot of policies that the people are not aware of, whether it be in Russia or back in the Cold War, all the Soviet bloc countries?
Uh, this is pretty deep question, and I'd like to see and I'd like to watch and witness millions in Moscow, in the streets of Moscow against Putin. If I see this, I'll be very happy and glad that people, Russian people, finally realize that something very bad they did, something very bad to the world, very bad. So nothing even close, nothing is happening in Russia right now, but let's stay positive. If we will see millions and millions in the street of Moscow and St. Petersburg and other cities and countries, other cities in Russia, then we will see and we will say that something maybe will change. But it's hard to say because
Well, looking into a crystal ball is always very
it's
difficult
very
to do.
hard.
I
They keep
totally agree with you.
silent.
But I have to go back to say, Georgia speaks of its independence. Hungary, Czechoslovakia, other countries talk about this is the day we achieved our independence. So if some countries could do that, why can't we say Ukraine will stay independent?
Of course, and Ukraine just showed to the world its golden and transparent spirit, full of love and kindness. I called Ukraine divine Ukraine because it's very strange, but roots of Moscovia, Moscovites and Katsaps go down, deep down and down in Ukraine culture. So I think this is the final and huge war in the beginning of new millennium, and new era will be started and already starting, and it's going on, will be started soon officially. We try to stay human being and remain human being and stay calm and talk about culture and politics, but it's not so easy to do when you see what's going on in Mariupol, in Kharkiv, in Bucha, and nothing is happening in Russia. I mean, protests, zero, nothing.
If it did, would the media be able to pick it up outside of Russia?
Armando, I don't think so. Well, we all are living in 21st century, and we have internet. We have so many media news companies all around the planet. I think it's a question of choice. I choose to be a citizen of 21st century. Many Russian citizens think that 24th century belongs to them only, and they have rights to kill the people and children. No way.
I've even heard, and I've seen it firsthand, visiting a little bit of Russia from the eastern side, that people want to go back to Stalinism. They wish they could bring Stalin back. And in some cities, they still have the Stalin statues, hoping that he comes back. So the mindset is there. And if we look at the number of people that died, not only outside of Russia, but in Russia, through famine, through different areas of death, they're in the millions.
Yep. For example, in 2008, Armando, when I was in Georgia, Russia made another deadly attempt to conquer Georgia by its military aggression. I opposed Russia's aggression with my protest meetings. I created this slogan and movement, Stop Russia. And I was the organizer of this huge civil solidarity headquarters. Many Russians were in Tbilisi in that period of time. And I introduced to the people on the stage, I said, of course, we are not against the people at all. But what has happened now? I don't know. It's a question of stupidity, question of darkness, question of ugliness, spiritual ugliness, because Kremlin is built by hatred and every and all the bad things. Kremlin is a place of death because the mausoleum by Lenin, it's disgusting. In 21st century, oh, come on, man, it's absolutely don't understandable. There is no place for evil in 21st centuries anymore. Something really deadly has happened in the world by Putin, by Kremlin, by Russia. So time is near, time is coming, and it will be the huge end of deadly history of empire, of madness called Russia.
You know, all the time when I was watching the series of Star Wars, I really always thought of this is still a representation of the Cold War.
Correct.
It wasn't, no one ever had flags and said, this belongs here and that belongs there. It was the world, but it was the idea of light and darkness.
Yeah.
And
yep.
I don't know if he was predicting it. I don't know if he sort of saw the future. I see it from those forces that they are a danger to themselves. They ultimately bring destruction wherever they go. They don't leave any culture. They don't leave anything better.
And the world, Armando, you're absolutely right. And I love this conversation. We can talk freely and fluently about this very sensitive something, I don't know what term to use, but people, culture, politics. The thing is that the world doesn't care anymore about Russia, about Dostoevsky. I don't care. I never cared, but I don't care right now 100% because it is not working. It never worked, it's not working. Russia said, we are living in hell and you must live with us in our hell. You have no right to be free because we hate freedom. That's the understanding of madness of Russia, unfortunately. So maybe fortunately, because
you're helping me understand. But it's foreign in a way to get the concept in our head because we've taken some certain liberties for granted, freedom being that item. So to the Russian leadership, people being free is a poison.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. And this is for generation, Armando.
Yes.
Once again, I'm not against people, of course, heaven forbid. But I want to see as a normal man, as you, as anyone else, I want to see that Russian people care what's going on. But they say exactly opposite. They say in their interviews, I'm watching news and all of us, that Ukraine must be punished. They are fascists. They are Nazis. They are killing babies. Everything is fake. That's a question of stupidity. It's idiotic. Oh, come on. That's the state of political hostility between countries characterized by propaganda and threats. That's the Cold War in their mind. And I think, oh boy, we can talk about this endlessly.
Let me narrow it down a little bit here and specifically addressing the audience in North and South America. We're watching the news, we're looking at this, and we think Russia and Ukraine are in a war. This just happened uh, 3 months ago, a little bit more over 3 months ago. But the problem is people see it as an isolated moment that all of a sudden Russia decided, oh, we're going to invade. What they don't see is the connection of the behavior into the Cold War era and how the Cold War era is connected probably all the way to Ivan the Terrible.
Absolutely agree with you. 100% I agree with you. And we can say that war in Ukraine 2022, okay, elections in Georgia in 2012, which was Russian special madness to achieve this goal to catch this free country and crush it as possible. War in Georgia in 2008, war in Georgia in 1991, 1992, 1994, Chechnya, one war, the second war, and before this, and before, all, of course, the stream of this madness goes deeply down to this Cold War era and before. So this is never-ending story. I mean, never-ending story, but it will be ended very soon. Soon means soon. And of course, the beginning of this conflict dwells in Kremlin, of course, but in that period when the world just closed its eyes and say, Russia took Chechnya, it's okay. Russia took Georgia, it's okay. Russia took something, it's okay. But no way. We have consciousness, right? We are not stones. We have minds, we have hearts. We can talk with each other and we can show to each other the history of Cold War, history of hot war, what's going on right now. And by the way, Armando, let me congratulate the Kalush Orchestra, this is Ukrainian rock band who won this Eurovision competition just a couple of hours ago. Rock and roll.
Rock and roll was one of the first bands to go into once the wall of Berlin came down. So
this is also Russia always using right now, of course, but used also anything like a political weapon. Music, rock and roll, they used as a political weapon. Many rock great bands were just banned in Russia. This is part of culture. Poets, they're afraid poets. They are shooting the statue of Taras Shevchenko in Ukraine because they hate everything normal, kind, and beautiful because they are ugly mentally. That's why the world doesn't care anymore about the culture. We're not against the Russian culture. We just don't care. It's easy to understand, right?
Well, I would say, and interpret it in my own words, they don't care either.
That's the conflict between good and evil. It will be ended soon and kindness will prevail. I'm absolutely aware of it.
You know, I'm really, unfortunately, we're running out of time, but I'm really touched with the idea that the solution is not political. It's human. It's
in the end, yes.
Love the arts, poetry, people who can touch their feelings and say, we're not going the right way.
Right.
We have to come back. We have to merge together and we need each other. We can't isolate ourselves, one country to the other. At a different level, I think we have a danger, and we've always had it here in this country and in this continent, that we think of things as over there. That's
correct, Armando.
Their problem over there. We don't have anything
feeling
to do
is
with
absolutely
it.
understandable, and I hear you.
That I think it can be very serious problem, since we're in a global economy, in a
Of course,
global
of course,
perspective.
of course.
Internet has taught us that we cannot
Yep.
close our eyes. We cannot say it's them and it's us over here.
Absolutely
do
right.
that.
And it not can't be continued this way
Yeah.
anymore. We cannot close our eyes to say that culture is, we have to separate culture of politics. It's 21st century. There's a new politicians, new artists, new everything is new. We have, so this is the new, brand new world. So Russia must be punished and Russia must accept this new world, and then maybe something kind and good will happen. We don't know yet, but let's see. And in the end, I'd like to make my statement as an idea of what Cold War was, is, and heaven forbid, but will be if we continue this way. May I share with you one of my work, which I wrote on March 21st, 2022. It's called 96-Year-Old Man. May I?
Absolutely.
Thank you. This is a story about a real man who was standing on his balcony in the city of Kharkov and was killed by a Russian missile. And he was a Holocaust survivor. So it's a bizarre and tragic story of, I don't know, oh boy, what the world is this, huh? I was standing alone in front of the stillness of March, not expecting the flow of memories. We're living without love. That's why the war can't be measured by history, by ashes, by art. Without today, we breathe between yesterday and tomorrow. Do you know something about time? About time, yes, and its insanity. Do you know something about yourself, about me, how I lived, how I loved, what I did? Maybe you can predict future. Time should have some meaning for you. For me, it's insanity. I felt history's neurasthenia in that very afternoon when I was standing in front of the stillness of March and not expecting the flow of seconds, nerves of time. I understood and I did not expect to be alive. Time is meaningless and it's suppressing us. I did not expect to feel that deadly second again in emptiness. But my heart was able to beat again. My heart is remembering after centuries how to beat again. In the frozen silence of fears, war, and the raw, cold breeze of cold war, of the laughs, and all. 96-year-old man, Mr. Romanchenko, survived the concentration camps Buchenwald, Peenemünde, Mittelbau-Dora, Bergen-Belsen. Yesterday, he was killed by the Russian missile hitting his apartment building in Kharkiv. Russia, the denazifier, did what the Nazis could not do.
Whoa.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. I'm trying to put my head together. That was moving. David Dephy, you've put reason to insanity. There were many loose ends I didn't understand about our current history, and people are asking everywhere, why is this happening? Where is it going? You know, could this have happened in the modern time? But the reality is the calendar says 2020, 2022, but the mindset might be pre-Cold War. So,
Again, oh boy. So Cold War is still echoes, but Ukraine will prevail, and it means the free world, our civilization will be alive again. I'm absolutely positive. I'm an idealist. I'm a poet. I saw the future. It's divine.
poets are dangerous people in a great way. From a
correct.
political sense, they go after poets because you have that power. So I'm aware of that, and I always respect it as well. David, we're ready to sign off, but before we do, where can our viewers follow you in your fantastic work, your poetry, your speaking engagements, etc.? Where can people find you?
Thank you. So the main web page, it's called Artistic Freedom Initiative. On YouTube, you can find my channel. It's called David Dephy. And Google.
The internet is open to all of us.
That's
David,
right.
I want to thank you very much. In a moment of great suffering that you have seen firsthand, being from the country of Georgia and experiencing friends in other countries, in the neighboring countries, and family I'm sure you have in different places, crossing borders, you still maintain hope. I am empowered by that, and I will remember you by that. And we will have future conversations, and I'm going to keep pulling at you. Tell me the future. Not the sure thing what's going to happen, but your envisionment, being that you grew in that area, you understand the mindset better, and that you can put more of the pieces together, which you have helped me do today. And hopefully our viewers will be able to do the same. Thank you very much for being on the show, David.
Thank you. I'm deeply honored. Thanks a lot. Thank you. God bless you. Glory to Ukraine.
I will go. If I'm around, even if it's in pieces, I will go. That is something we must see, we must appreciate, and more than anything, the courage of the people.
Absolutely. God bless you.
Thank you, David.
Thank you, Armando.